Welcome to Film Seizure. This is Chuck Moore. Ho, ho, ho. We're a week before Christmas. And boy, have we got a gift for you. A very happy, go lucky, lovely gift of a 1998's A Simple Plan.
Hey man, if you can't if you can't gift your brother with hot lead, what can you do,
Yeah, I mean, if you love somebody, you should gift them something, right?
Nothing
Right
like a
to
little
the back of the head.
nothing like a little fratricide for the holidays.
Yeah.
You know it's happening somewhere as this episode is airing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely it is.
At dinner tables all across the world.
You either drink alone or you kill somebody on Christmas.
We've all been there.
Yeah, happy thoughts for this Christmas season. I've kind of run us through the mud this month, and I kind of feel bad about that. But
Well, we got next week to cover up for it.
yeah, we do have next week to cover up for it. So we will send this episode out with a bang and the year out with like a happy bang. Anyway,
Well,
again,
a bigger bang for the end of the year.
yes, a bigger bang for the end of the year.
Yeah.
That's Jeff Arbuckle. Hi, Jeff. How are
Hey,
you?
how's it going, Chuck?
Good. Thank you. And then Jason, you heard a moment ago. Hi, Jason.
Hello. I'm here.
You are here. So
Present.
present and accounted for.
Yeah.
So A Simple Plan, Sam Raimi's. I kind of have always called this like Sam Raimi's Coen Brothers movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of.
I agree with that. Very much so. It's his Fargo, I think,
Yeah, it doesn't have, which is fine. It doesn't have that like, what is that edge? I don't know. We've talked about it with the Coens so many times, like their kookiness or their eccentricities. Like, I think it tries it a little bit, but it doesn't really hit the mark necessarily.
Yeah.
No, I mean it's Raimi has his own like there are still some things in this that very much like when they hit that post and the dog's head comes through that plastic that
Yeah, it comes through the window.
yeah, the Jacob has on the back of the window. That's a very Raimi to the point where it's like after you realize what's going on, you kind of chuckle at it a little bit. But no, it's not the quirkiness that the Coens have. Although
No,
I will say a couple of things real quick about the Coens is the last two Coen movies that we covered not only had Billy Bob Thornton in it, but also Billy Bob Thornton's haircut in this looked a lot like Anton's in The Country for Old Men.
A little bit. Billy Bob reminds me of Ken Shuttleworth in this movie for some reason.
Oh,
Sorry,
that's
Ken.
so weird.
Sorry, Ken, for the shout
see
out.
it though. I kind of see it. I was gonna say this to me is sort of a cross between Blood Simple and Fargo, as far as tone goes.
I can see that.
And it's the Raimi Sam Raimi was involved in a lot of ways with Blood Simple, so it feels more of I think an extension of that, but with that snowy atmosphere that you get with Fargo and the small town and all of that feel.
Well, it's Minnesota too, so it's like
Yeah.
yeah.
So
You know
I think it's in the orbit, right, of all of that, but it's very Sam Raimi. Yeah, it really is. And this marked kind of not the beginning of, but like a stretch of movies in his career where I thought honestly he was doing his most interesting work, because he did The Quick and the Dead before this, and then he did this. It is a baseball movie with Kevin Costner.
Oh yeah, for the love of the game.
Yeah, which is a pretty good movie, but very different from everything else he's done. And then The Gift, right? So it's kind of like a really interesting period of original work that he did in between kind of like all of his Evil Dead stuff and then all of his superhero stuff.
Yeah.
And then you've got the old big IP property stuff, I should say. The only thing that he's done since The Gift that is interesting as an original property would be Drag Me to Hell.
Fair.
I'd like to see him get back to more stuff like this, right?
Yeah, I mean, I will say, even though this is the first time we've talked about Sam Raimi on this show, I have covered the first two Evil Dead movies for Monster Mondays, and in just a few weeks, it's already in the can, but in just a few weeks, I did Drag Me to Hell also. So, I've kind of already talked a little bit about Sam Raimi from that perspective. And in the Drag Me to Hell episode, I do talk about how he's not really a horror guy. He's just most famous for that sort of stuff. Sure. He has a sensibility to him that's a horror thing, but he is an interesting director. I mean, I think he's got a lot of neat ideas.
I would say that his only actual straight horror film he's ever made. Some might argue the first Evil Dead, but the only one he's really truly made was probably Drag Me to Hell. Like that's
and even that has stuff that you laugh at.
Sure,
it isn't like the Alison Lohman character in that is so over the top in kind of like sweetness and then when she gets desperate, it becomes almost cartoonish, because it does follow a little bit from like Evil Dead 2 in some ways. At times it's very frantic and the gore is hilarious in it.
Yeah, it's kind of like his style, right? Is to kind of get a little zany with the camera, a little wacky with the characters, like bring things over the top. He did that in everything up until this. Quick of the Dead, if you've seen that recently, is very over the top. It's like as bad as Raimi as it gets.
Right.
But
does it have bullet follows and stuff like that? Like
yeah, totally. And that the Raimi cam following it, and then the big zooms and the kind of epic angles and stuff like that, right? And just crazy characters. This movie, in a lot of ways, like if you were to just put in front of me and I did not know it was Sam Raimi, I don't know that I would guess that it was Sam Raimi. Like I really don't. I don't think that there's any one thing in here. Well, yes, you can see it if you know. I don't necessarily would have thought, oh, this is definitely a Sam Raimi movie by seeing it. You know what I mean?
I would argue the first 2/3 or 3/4 of Spider-Man, you can't really tell it's Sam Raimi until the final fight between Spider-Man and Green Goblin, where it gets really crazy.
It's been a while
Bruce
since I've
Campbell
seen it,
shows up.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's a clue.
Yeah, but it's really not until the second Spider-Man that he gets his full, like, that is a full-on Raimi movie.
Yeah, definitely.
The
like all
Raimi.
the Doc Ock, like point POV stuff. Yeah,
the operation scene. Yeah,
and all that stuff. Yeah, yeah.
Unsurprising, probably, but I totally forgot this was Sam Raimi when I picked it. So I didn't even, like, about a week before we recorded, I was like, oh yeah, it is Sam Raimi. One thing I did want to circle back on from earlier about Coen Brothers, Sam Raimi, this movie. This movie makes leaps with characters and story like a Coen Brothers film does. Like something happens that's kind of stupid and then everything just goes nuts from there. It's definitely missing that humor to those scenes to make it like kind of illogically logical, if that makes sense. Like, okay, this is a funny happenstance that throws everything into oblivion, but more people are just stupid.
It's definitely like trying to play on the "what would you do" hypothetical question, right?
Right.
Like that's kind of its whole thing. Is it wants to put the audience through the ringer on, well, if it were you, what would you do? And honestly, like most of the things they decide to do is idiotic.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
They make so many bad decisions in this. At one point, there's supposed to be a smarter brother and a dumber brother, but I don't know.
Well,
Sometimes I really wonder which one is the smart one and which one is the dumb one. Yeah.
Well, they both orbit around the good idea, and sometimes one is closer to the good idea than the other.
There's really only one character in this movie that is legitimately intelligent.
Yeah.
And we'll get to her, but yeah, it's an odd movie. I like it. But I agree, Chuck. Like people make decisions in this that are just like completely weird, and they just let it happen.
Well,
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to you have three characters who are faced with a decision, and all three of those characters make the wrong choice, but do something different. You know what I mean? Like you have Hank, who's Bill Paxton, who he wants to turn it in, like instantaneous. If he'd have found it by himself, he would have never taken it home. He would have just turned it in.
You're talking about the money, right?
Yes, right. The money that's found in this wrecked airplane, which I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about that for sure. But like, he would have never taken it home, and Bridget Fonda's character would have never known or been involved with any decision making. And at least I don't think he would. Now, if Lou had found it by himself, he probably would have just immediately started splashing it around town.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And then Jacob wouldn't really know what to do with the money, but he would not stop telling people that he found it.
Yeah, that's true too.
And they all do varying degrees of playing with that idea. Lou ends up going off and racks up a gambling debt. Jacob keeps spouting off things, not really able to stop himself because he is developmentally challenged. So he spouts off something, not realizing, oh my God, you cannot say anything that even refers to the concept of a plane, money, or finding something that was lost. And Hank is playing it way too safe, but at the same time, in playing it too safe, he finds himself consistently making the wrong choice when it matters most.
Well, Hank is interesting because the flaws he sees in others, he does not see in himself.
Exactly.
Yeah. So he's worried that Lou is going to tell his wife. What does he do? He tells his wife immediately.
Yes.
He worried, everything he sees in other people is a problem within himself as well, which is
I mean, there's a farmer
he sees himself as superior. He sees himself as superior
for sure.
to them.
Yeah.
And he's really not. And he's kind of dumb too. He's the kind of dumb that's dangerous because he doesn't realize his limitations.
Right.
Yeah, and then when you bring in Bridget Fonda's character as kind of the fourth, it's kind of funny. She's a fourth corner in a triangle, and she is poisoned by the thought of, well, if we do everything right, we're scot free, and so she starts planning on keeping it, not realizing that she makes decisions, even though kind of smart, that are actually kind of dark and kind of, she goes bad.
Oh yeah.
She's
so
like Gollum.
She is instantly corrupted.
She's Gollum in this.
Yeah.
She's instantly corrupted.
Because without seeing the money, she's like, you got to take it back. You got to turn it in. It's stealing. It's wrong. It's against the law. The moment he's pouring the money out onto the table, she's laughing and she's figuring out how to keep it.
Right.
And if she could keep it all, and if she could keep it all, she would.
It's easy to have a moral center when it's a hypothetical, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Which is, I think, a lot about what this movie is trying to say.
Sure.
Yeah.
I also think, like you said, Jeff, like she makes smart decisions. I think her ideas are smart, but she does not take account the variables that are in play at all.
Right. She has no connection to Jacob other than through marriage, right? So she's like, screw it. He's going to fuck this up. You better rein him in, or you need him to fuck over his friend. She does not have any feelings for him. It's like even early on, like when things are still kind of cool, you kind of get the impression she doesn't want him around.
Oh yeah, she does.
Which is kind of sad, I mean, and now granted, I will say, I texted Jason yesterday and I said, at the beginning of the movie, it's like, I'm Bill Paxton. I could not handle being around like Lou and Jacob. Fuck those guys.
Why do you guys, whenever I pick a movie, it seems like you guys talk behind my back.
Well, no, because I didn't know if you'd watch it, but I was
it was just like a couple times.
I'm joking.
But I was like, man, I am Bill Paxton at the beginning of this movie. It's like these guys are, I mean, man, I couldn't deal with just driving around on icy roads with them guzzling beer
Well,
and wanting to almost look for trouble.
it would be like what was Adam's friend?
Oh, yeah.
Rick,
Rick. It's like hanging out with those two guys.
Yeah.
kind of. Sorry, Adam, for making
Yeah, well,
Jacob
fuck him.
in this
That's
scenario.
the way it was. It was 20 years ago.
But I mean, it's total, like, it is one's the other's X factor who becomes the double X factor for the other one, who ends up becoming the triple X factor for the first person. It's a fucking disaster. And I would not want to be around that in any kind of serious situation. But then once they find, once they realize, they wreck because a fox has taken a hen from the hen house, and it causes them to wreck their truck after visiting their parents at grave. Put some poinsettias there, which is very, very of this time of year because it's like New Year's Eve. And so they wreck their truck, and then that Jacob's dog goes taken off after the fox. And that's how they find the plane that's got the, oh my God, and it cracked me up when Bill Paxton goes into the plane and he thinks that the pilot's still alive, and then the crows kind of like fly at him when the plane settles. And Jacob's like, "Did you see the birds?" He's like, "Did I see the birds?"
He points at the scrape on his forehead. Jacob's an interesting character. He has these weird moments of lucidity. There's the moment when they're at the gravestone, when they're at their parents'. Is it his father's grave or both of his
I think
parents?
it's both.
Well, I only saw his dad's name, but maybe it is both.
But they're at their parents' grave, and he's like, "Oh, somebody's been up here." And Jacob's like, "Oh yeah, I brought that. And Hank looks at him, like, "What are you doing up here?" And he's like, "Well, you're not. It's not the only time of year I can come visit the gravestone.
Yeah,
what's wrong with you?"
Well, and then later,
it's interesting. He has these perfect moments of like human logic and humanity, right?
I think
that
he
interjects at these times where it really does make you question like Hank and everything, right?
I think he is really the moral and logical, maybe the wrong word, but center of this movie.
He's the most pure.
Yeah. Well, and also he does have a thing
Innocent
later.
Maybe is the even. He's not innocent, but he has a. He has a
he has a moral innocence to him in a way, like where he is kind of naive, and he has no ill intention.
Yeah.
So he. That's important later.
Shit.
Well, yeah, he does. Well, yeah, because
he's like also kind of the one. If you don't count them actually deciding to take the money, he's kind of the one that he is the one who makes it all go south in several different ways. Now, it was probably going to go south a different way if it weren't for him. But my God, he does stupid shit that they have to fucking work around the whole time.
For sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, I get the impression that, like, they talk about how, like, I think Wikipedia says he has, like, a learning disability. It could be something as simple as, I mean, I don't know, maybe the book says more specifically, but, like, I always get the impression that he doesn't have a learning disability that completely and totally ruins his ability to think or learn things, right? Like maybe he's like dyslexic or something, where it's like when he's
just not smart. I just
think he has a lower IQ. It's not necessarily any sort of condition. It's just not as smart.
Well, I mean, the reason why I'm saying that is that they specifically state that he has a learning disability or a learning difficulty.
Someone with a lower IQ would. Yeah.
Well, sure. But I mean, like, it could also be a situation where that was something. This is rural Minnesota. They would have been growing up like in the early 60s or late 60s or something. It's possible that it was a thing that could have been worked around later on
Maybe,
but
I don't know.
he was just kind of given up on. So he's like he doesn't have learned curiosity. Like that happens a lot to people. I mean, it's happening everywhere we go today. It's like how many people lose their curiosity over things just because they've decided at some point on their own, I'm going to stop learning stuff, and I'm not going to stop caring about stuff. And if that was kind of thrust upon him, he could still have some natural intelligence that cuts through what Hank has been kind of built up as well. You're the college boy. You're supposed to be the smart one. And then everybody looks to Hank to make the decision for everybody else, including Jacob, when Jacob could make his own decision. Obviously, he has to make some decisions on his own because he lives by himself.
Well, he's clearly not like a complete imbecile. Like, yeah,
no.
He can kind of take care of himself. I mean, barely.
But I suspect it might be more of an Arrested Development sort of situation as opposed to natural stupidity.
I don't know. Like some of the things he does is pretty stupid. It's pretty.
Yeah, but if you don't know any better,
like the whole thing. Yeah, but I mean, it's like common sense stupid, right? Like telling the cop, it's like, oh yeah, I thought we heard a plane that was engine was about to crash or something. I was like, that's just dumb.
Well, but
there's just no way around it.
But that was Lou's.
Doesn't matter whose idea it was. If he was smart, he was said that's stupid.
Well, fair enough. But,
it's a bad idea. He's also his best friend is Lou. That should tell you a lot too.
Well, yeah. I mean, but no. I mean, I think that I get the impression that those lucidity moments it really is his natural intelligence, because like he tells Hank later what really happened to their dad. It wasn't just a simple accident. There's no way it could be a simple accident.
Right, and I know, and
he worked that out.
But I also think that there's two things that play there. Jacob was closer to the situation.
Fair, yeah.
And Hank had a lot of blinders on, right?
Sure.
Like, I don't necessarily think it was a huge leap in logic, but it just showcases very starkly the difference between the two of them.
Sure.
And what they think about themselves in their lives, right?
Well, yeah, because it is true that Hank is always presenting a version of himself. Again, he is the town's literal only graduate of college or something like that. He's like one of the only college.
Yeah.
Oh God, imagine going back there. He would constantly be called college boy.
College boy.
Oh God. I had a job one time that I did while I was in college, and nobody else had a college degree or even went to college, and they called me that constantly, and it was
That's
like
so annoying.
It's like, you really think that's a put down? You
Right.
really think that's a put down?
All right, college boy. Enough with that.
Well, I didn't finish. I have no degree. Well, I have a degree. It's not a real one though.
Yeah.
What is it in poop shoot ology? Is that what it says?
Yeah. It's botology.
Botology.
But he needed an expert to come in and tell him how to work the thing.
It's like, the thing looks like a butthole to me, and they're like, "Yeah, you're right." It's like, that's why we pay you the big bucks.
Oh man.
Anyway,
where the hell are we?
Yeah, so basically, they find the downed plane, and they pull. They realize the pilot's dead, and they pull the money out. They pull this big giant duffel bag out, and they count up very quickly that there is $4.49 million.
4.4.
I thought they said
4.4.
I thought it was 4.4 with 90.
It was 4.4 exactly.
Oh, it was 4.4.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Because they counted it out at the truck bed. It's 4.4.
Yeah, it is 4. I think where I got the extra 90 was they hung on the 4.39 and then laid the last $10,000 to make it 4.4. That's right.
And then Jacob asks, "How much is that each?" And Hank said, "About $1.5 million."
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So they
and then Jacob says, $1.5 million.
Right, as the cop is pulling up with his window down, it's like, what's going on?
That's what this movie does really well is create just really anxiety-inducing, tense moments. Right?
This is a masterclass in having a thriller that is almost entirely based on situation without a direct horror present.
Yeah, it's almost Hitchcocky in that way.
Yeah.
It
Right,
really
the bad
is.
guy is the money, right? In a lot of ways.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Two things as they're getting the money I just wanted to mention, because they do kind of come up again later, when Lou throws the snowball and he's like, that's an insinuating throw.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, I think he means threatening, but he says insinuating works, but
he says that that's exactly what Hank told him, that tells me that Hank is using that incorrectly.
Yeah.
probably.
Which is Hank trying to throw around a $10 word, and it's not really the way he wants to.
You probably should say threatening, but insinuation.
It's insinuation means that it seemed like I was going to do something, but I didn't. I think he's using it the correct way. Threatening works too, but it has a different connotation.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, insinuating is neutral, whereas threatening would be a negative. Yeah. But like he specifically says that's exactly what you said to me, which to me is not really the way that Hank should have said that.
Maybe, but
I think I think that kind of plays, or I think that's the bread seed or the breadcrumb that's supposed to put into your head that, like, yes, Hank thinks he's better than these guys because
certainly
he uses those types of concepts against them.
He's maybe he was someone who was bullied when he was younger, who now is bullying back as an adult with assumed intelligence. Yeah.
And you also have the line, which is interesting about Hank, because it can be taken two ways. He says, "You work for the American dream, you don't steal it."
Yeah. I love that line.
It's great, but there's also a moral superiority in it. Like the way, like he says it, like I'm better than you.
Well, I like what Lou says back. He says, "Well, that makes it even better."
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is that Hank is kind of, it's like, let's face it, Hank is bought into he's bought into the bullshit line about the American dream too, right? Like, it's like, yeah, no, you're supposed to work, and that kind of comes back in a way to how to Sarah kind of railing on him about, like, what do you think our future is without this money? Oh, you're just supposed to wait there until your boss dies so that you might be able to make a little bit more money at the feed shop while I have to plaster on a fake smile every day at the library, all of that stuff. That is, people are supposed to say, well, yeah, no, that's how you're supposed to work hard to get ahead. These people aren't getting ahead. So yeah.
This is interesting. Go ahead, Jason.
I was just going to say that mentality kind of goes two ways, I think, thematically. You can think that she was always been thinking that,
sure,
right? Or you can think that the thought of what they can do with all of that money has changed her perception of happiness, right?
Sure.
Which is I think what Hank his whole arc is, right? Is he didn't realize until after the fact that he was happy before the money entered their lives, right?
Yeah.
But you do wonder, there is a question mark around his wife. Like, has she always been harboring those feelings? And that's sad, right?
I kind of read it,
a doomed relationship.
I kind of read it that way. I think his first line in the movie where he talks about how he used to have a happy life, like you just mentioned, you're like, okay, this is kind of sad for this man. But then you realize he probably hasn't learned anything because he's saying this after the movie, right? Like, he doesn't know still.
Well, hindsight is perfect, but now he's living with a lifetime of guilt.
Right, for sure.
He'll never probably be happy now because of the choices that he made. And that's the irony of it.
Yes, agreed.
If he had just followed his actual gut instinct in the beginning, he'd be okay, right?
Yep.
And maybe he still would have marital problems. Maybe they still have money problems, right? But he wouldn't have shot his brother in the head.
Oh, spoiler alert, everybody.
It was the very first thing we said.
I know.
I know. I just like to say spoiler alert.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's, yeah. And, I mean, there is something also, the whole idea of Lou thinking this is the American dream. Yeah. The idea is that to some, the only way they can have any semblance of the American dream is to luck into something that they have no business having.
Right.
And that's unfortunate too. I mean, that's almost 100% of everybody in this country.
Well, yeah, I would say the 99% thinks the 1% steals from them every day.
Anyway, exactly. So it's like, why can't we have a little bit of that back?
It's interesting coming off the heels, like this was not a choice that I made and I was going to save it for later. But this is like the opposite of The Big Chill. Like if you take The Big Chill literally like you guys did, right? Like
well, I'm open to interpretation.
Yeah. But if you take it that way, then this movie is like the less fortunate can have nice things. Yeah. And the other movie is like the fortunate can have whatever the fuck they want.
Exactly. Yeah. And the less fortunate can have what they can have what they want,
but they'll pay consequences.
They'll either pay consequences or be forever hounded by those who have, or will always be kind of like, well, they didn't deserve it. They'll always have to deface everybody from both sides saying they didn't deserve that. Right. And it's like the funny, and, we've had this conversation before, our unique, almost pathological, practical lust for those who are rich in this country. It's, we never say they don't deserve that. But we always say when somebody new comes along with that kind of power and money, far more likely the people who have always kind of worship power would say they didn't deserve that. And it's like, why? They did nothing different than the people that these, that people like that always worship,
I don't know. I would argue I hear the term trust fund baby and stuff like that thrown around a lot in this country.
Well, sure. I mean, we hear that a lot on our end of the spectrum, but there's a lot of other people who don't think that way, or they think they'll look after me. But
there's a difference though. It's less that I think the person that Jeff is probably thinking most in mind of here is like Elon Musk or even Donald Trump. Yeah. I think it's more of a cult of personality though.
Sure.
That they latch onto. I mean, you don't hear a lot of people going out of their way to like worship the ground that Warren Buffett walks on,
Well,
I mean, there are some. There are finance a lot of people do.
Finance people like him, and
but they legitimately look at him as like a model for how they want to get rich, right?
Sure.
With like the Trump followers, the Elon Musk followers, it's a whole nother animal. It's ideological, and it's they can do no wrong. Therefore, we would believe anything they say.
Those guys do no wrong. Meanwhile, George Soros, who is, can never do any right, even though some of our guys have benefited from him. That sort of thing, Yeah.
I don't want to cast aspersions on everyone that goes to church, but those people all go to church.
Of course they do. Of course they do. And they all look at, exactly. And they all look at a book that says you're supposed to give it all away. No, they ain't doing that. I'll give it all away to my kid.
Prosperity gospel. Yeah. I read that. That's all over the Bible.
Yeah. Anyway, but again, I mean, like, this is kind of the heart of the matter here, though, right? It's like, it's the idea of one person who has gone off and gotten smarts from college, buying into a system that to him could be feasible with what he has, I mean, it's not like he couldn't pack up and move to Minneapolis or St. Paul and get a really good bookkeeping job, or Sarah couldn't move with him and get a really good librarian job. Librarians don't not get paid very well. I mean, it's like they get an okay amount if they have the degree for it. So it's like, but they settled for the smaller town where they're the big fish in the small pond, in terms intellectually at least. But yeah, for Lou and for Jacob, the only thing they could ever have that would have any semblance of the American dream would have to be something they luck into and probably shouldn't have. All things considered,
There's a moment right at the beginning of this movie that I find telling about Hank as well. Yes, he went to college. Yes, he has a job at the feed mill that pays the bills. I think he's an accountant, right? Is that what he is?
Yep.
But he has to very submissively remind his boss that he's leaving early today, right?
Yeah.
Like the scene he is very, very like almost prostrate to him, right? So he has not achieved anywhere near the level of stature or career advancement that he would expect given his high learning.
Yeah,
his high learning.
Yeah, his high learning.
I have kind of a feeling that he failed in the big towns and came home. But
yeah.
Oh, that
I
could
see
be.
that as
That very well could be too. Yeah.
I wish that you knew more about. Is it Sarah?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I almost feel like she's not from the town either.
She's not.
He brought her from college or from the big city or something like that.
That was
right?
Lou's whole thing. Was like she. You could have just said she inherited some money. Nobody knows her.
Right.
Exactly. So it's like, yeah. I mean, so this could.
But I wish
also
you had.
be,
I wish we knew a little bit more about her background because she's really important as that fourth part of the triangle, as you said.
Right.
It'd be nice to know. It'd be nice to know a little bit more about her motivations.
That's something that you point out a lot, Jason, and you're not being as harsh on it right now as sometimes you are, is that these female characters in movies that help orchestrate things, oftentimes you don't know anything about them. And you learn a lot about them.
She comes across as the token, like stereotypical manipulative wife.
Right.
That's her whole
if this is the morality tale, she is kind of playing off as the snake in the grass, right?
She's Eve, yeah. Tempting Adam. Yep.
That's interesting. I didn't think of her as Eve, but I thought a lot of this as being biblical. In a way.
I mean, because the concept is brought up later by Jacob. Jacob, first of all. The name is biblical, but he, and of course, the Gospel of Hank. But anyway, we all read that one, right, at some point in our lives. But no,
the book according to Lou.
Lou doesn't have a Job, though.
Oh no! But but Jacob and Sarah are
J-O-B.
Thank you.
That's good.
But but like Sarah and Jacob are both biblical names, and they're kind of playing biblical roles in this, right? Because at one point, Jacob says, "I feel evil."
Yeah.
And he's actually now bringing in the concept of evil, which, if you think of things completely and totally secular, there wouldn't be a naturally good or evil. There would only be good or bad intentions.
He absolves Hank.
Yes, he does. He also absolves him. So there is a very religious element, or at least religious in terms of morality undertone baked into this. And it makes sense because they're also in a rural part of the country where it's like the idea of like most of the people in this town are living that kind of biblical concept of good and bad.
Chuck, you're the symbolic metaphor guy. What's your take on the crows?
I love the crows.
I think they just signify death, honestly. Like, no one is going to escape this. Like, even the line, which I was going to bring up as my second thing earlier, was those things are always waiting on something to die so they can eat it. What a weird job.
What a weird job.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I just... my read on that is, yes, they signify the impending doom of anyone involved in finding this plane.
Yeah. Fair.
Yeah, because they're always hanging around the plane. They kind of infect Hank by scratching him.
Yeah.
Because anybody who kills anybody without without a protective reasoning to it, like life protection, is Hank in this movie. I mean, of course, if you want to get real simplistic, what are a group of crows?
A murder.
A murder. Yeah.
And so what happens a lot in this movie? Hank
Yeah,
murders somebody.
lot of murderings.
Yeah.
A lot of murderings. Hank kills how many people in this? One, two,
three.
Three at least.
people.
Yeah.
Four.
Three people.
Four.
Wait, who's the fourth?
The FBI agent.
He doesn't kill. Oh,
Yeah.
four. Yeah.
That is the
You're
only
right.
one that he faces down and kind of does it in cold blood.
That's the only one who gets justice.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, yes. Yes.
Kind of.
Because he is a
Biblical
bad
justice.
guy. Biblical justice because he is
Yeah.
a bad guy.
And you could also call it, in some ways, self-defense. But
Well,
Yeah.
he was going to die if he didn't
But he's
do it.
the-
But
he's
he's the only
the-
one
he's
who
the only
stares
guy.
him down and
Yeah.
does it.
That's a great moment.
It is.
It's like he's fully embraced his Walter White in that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to. I like all of this movie, but the third act definitely makes it like a much better movie than I was in for the first 2/3.
Well, because you have to endure just so much bad decision making.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I would say that the third act, I mean, like, I was liking the first two acts because there is a lot going on in there, right? Internally with like the characters, and you see them having, you see them making these mistakes, which is, whatever. But I'm going to say that I kind of feel like everything that happens in the third act, and because of the choices and the things done in the first two acts, the third act becomes kind of a perfect ending. There's only one way this goes for Hank to live, and that is what ends up happening. It's like that.
Right.
That kind of is the perfect ending, because the only thing he can live with is the wrong things he's done. He can't.
Well,
he can't also live with the good stuff too.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're kind of remaking my point, which is fine.
Yeah, no. I'm sorry. I was backing up your point. That yes.
Yeah,
the third act
I didn't mean it
is
like
perfection.
negatively.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
I was saying I agree with you.
No, because that was something that I was thinking about yesterday after it finished, and I was like, I'm gonna go get some McDonald's, and I started thinking about it while I was waiting for my order to be brought out to me. I was like, I think that might have been a perfect ending.
It's pretty darn good. It like solidifies the movie, which could have gone a number of bad ways, probably. If Sam Raimi made like a Hank decision at the end, it was.
Oh, if there was any kind of a happy ending, the movie's ruined.
Oh yeah, I mean, there can't be a happy ending. I mean, Hank seals the deal when he kills the old man.
For sure.
I mean, that's it.
Early on. Yeah.
Yeah.
You cannot be redeemed
No.
after that. Even if, I mean, and it's not that he had a terrible reason to kill him, because the guy is like, we got to call the police on your brother. He is trying to protect his brother, but he's doing it the wrong way.
Well, you wonder.
Well,
I
sure.
mean, at that point, is he protecting his brother
Is he protecting
or
himself?
the money?
But
I mean, it's a little bit of both, I'm sure. But
timing wise, it's like he smothers the guy, and he struggles with the guy right after he's like, your brother does got call the police. So it gives you the doubt,
right?
Of whatever it is that he's protecting.
He also uses it against his brother, like immediately.
Oh yeah, he does.
Yeah.
Yep.
It sure does.
Yeah, I was going to say something, but I forgot it. Maybe it'll come back to me. So
You know what I hate the most? The worst decision in this movie is when this is a good idea. Like, what's her name again?
Sarah.
She has a good idea about taking some of the money back and putting it in the plane. Like, that's a very good idea. But why did he take Jacob with him to do that?
He's dumb.
It's the dumbest thing to do. He has to do it in a way that he doesn't realize he's doing it. So why did you just go by yourself? It makes no sense.
Well, and some of that is Hank. I think that's only just kind of serving up Hank's character of, he really, like, it's almost like he can't even think of doing anything without his brother, or his brother being able to do anything without him. Like, just simply surviving at his fucking apartment. I got to go get my brother to go do this thing. And it's kind of a weird like dichotomy of I can't do anything without him and he can't exist without me.
Yeah, it kind of feeds that earlier scene too about well, I can come up here by myself at other times of the year to his parents' grave, right? Yeah.
And he can't think that
you can't imagine that Jacob can think on and do things on his own. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's interesting to me. I like that because for me, this was all plot convenience. So looking at it,
any rationalization helps. Yeah.
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 Well, and I mean, like, what's the lowest IQ somebody can have without being able to be functioning on their own?
What's your IQ, Jason?
Oh, wow. All right, I'll take that.
Sorry, it's a joke.
Normally that comes this way.
Yeah, I thought about getting you, but you asked the question. So.
But no, I mean, but like, what, 60? What is, I mean, like,
I honestly don't know.
I don't know. But
I don't even know what the scale is, to be honest. So,
I mean, I think
40?
it goes up to 160, I think.
Yeah, 160.
But I know that there are like the average is like 90 or something, like 90 to 100 is the average. So, okay, so what if Jacob has a 75 IQ? That is still smart enough to live on your own, to make your own decisions. Now, maybe, you know, because like when he talks about like how the one girl he dated in high school was like bet to, you know, that she couldn't stay with him for a month or whatever. And of course, Hank had no concept that wouldn't be a possibility. You know, at the same time,
you also have to remember that Hank is the younger brother.
Yes. Yeah.
So there's a psychology there, and Chuck stepped away, but I want to repeat this, that you have to remember that Hank is the younger brother in this relationship. So developmentally, there had to be a moment where Hank realized that he was maybe
more mature, at least.
More mature, you know, more emotionally aware, more intelligent than his older brother. And what does that do psychologically to their dynamic, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Because we're talking about the scene where Jacob is saying that he had a girlfriend for a month, and Hank was totally oblivious to the fact that was a joke.
A setup, yeah.
But it makes some sense, because if Hank is the younger brother, he's not going to necessarily read it that way, and Jacob sure as shit isn't going to tell him.
Right, because it's embarrassing.
His little brother, right? Yeah.
Well, but at the same time, though, it's like that also, I think, is a scene that informs that maybe most of Jacob's supposed stupidity or lameness in terms of his mental acuity comes from just like, yes, maybe he had some issues, but he also doesn't have a whole lot of social interaction with a lot of different people. Lou is a big loudmouth dummy. So even if Lou is naturally smarter than Jacob, they can get along because maturity level brings Lou down, you know?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, if Jacob had normal social interaction, you can maybe get over his lack of intelligence, and he maybe wouldn't make some of the decisions or do some of the things that he would do quite the same way, or at least as badly. So some of that could be he's not well socialized as a person, you know.
He does have a lot more emotional maturity than everyone in this movie.
He sure does, because
he
he's
reacts
the one
appropriately to big emotional moments that you should react to. Yes.
Yeah, because like, you know, the big scene at Lou's place where like Hank is going to try to set Lou up to get him to say something that makes it sound like he killed the farmer.
Yeah.
Which we haven't really explained at all, but still, we'll get to it. But that whole thing where it's like, Jacob is appropriately reacting to what Hank is about to do. And while it works out, Jacob has every right to be a little disgusted by this. And he is reacting the way that Hank should have reacted when Sarah said, you should do this, you know, or at least more appropriately, where Hank should have said, man, that doesn't seem like that's a good idea. It's like at least Hank should have done that. But like Jacob is like, man, you're using me against my own friend here. And that is, and that is an emotional outburst where he's just a person who couldn't keep that in anymore. And that's fair.
Yeah. And that's emotional maturity again on Jacob's part, is the way he needles his brother and tells him how he truly feels while still carrying out the plan, which is like, that's amazing from Jacob there, right?
That's your best supporting actor nomination, right?
Oh
there.
yeah, that's yes, that scene is incredible. It really is.
Yeah. So should we?
All three of them are fantastic in that scene.
Yes, I want to mention
because that's a long scene too, with just the three of them talking, and a lot of that felt not scripted.
Yeah, and Lou has to act drunk.
Yeah. Well, they all have to act in some way inebriated or off. Yeah.
Lou is Brent Briscoe. He was in Sling Blade. That's what
he was.
He got his start pretty much the same time Billy Bob did with Sling Blade.
Oh, he was on Parks and Rec too.
His character actor shows up in a bunch of stuff, but yeah,
his Wikipedia picture makes him look like an aged up like AI version of Pedro Pascal.
Oh, weird. His wife in that is Becky Ann Baker. She's been in a lot of stuff too, but I always know her as the mom from Freaks and Geeks.
She looks like somebody who would have been like a Coen Brothers regular.
Yeah.
Doesn't she?
She kind of does, yeah. I think she kind of ended up becoming a Raimi regular, though.
Oh, cool.
She was in Spider-Man 3. I thought she was in something else, but maybe not. Maybe just that one. Anyway, what I was going to say was to keep going along the lines of who's the smarter brother. There's this whole the cop who I can't remember his name right now. Is that Chelsea Ross?
Carl.
I always remember him from Hoosiers. Mm-hmm. He was the guy in town who wanted to fire Gene Hackman yeah. But anyway, I think he was also he was the neighbor dad in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, I think. Anyway, there's never any serious inquiry with the brothers in any of these moments where they have done or been involved in some pretty strange happenings, right? Especially after the double murder at the house. And there's something that is really odd about that, because Jacob can't be trusted to talk to anyone and give a fake account, right? But somehow he gets through that. But they also don't really question Hank too much. And it kind of plays into something that Sarah tells Hank later, is that no one would ever believe you would be capable of what you've done. It makes me kind of believe that maybe even the town doesn't think that Hank is as smart as Hank thinks he is.
Maybe.
Could be. It's also like you had mentioned earlier, this is kind of like Raimi's Fargo. But this is Raimi's Fargo if the cop is not as smart as Frances McDormand.
Oh my God, if Frances McDormand were there, this is a 15-minute movie.
Like, he's not a good cop. He can't even.
He's not.
He can't even discern if an FBI agent is an actual FBI agent.
God!
But even the FBI agents at the end, don't
look right past Hank.
Look right past him.
But I love the lines where it looks like that they are like accusing him of lying.
Yes, that's good.
And then there's the switch in the dialogue. It's like, you didn't spot that from the other guy.
Yeah, that's Cohen. For sure.
I love the fact that originally this could have been a John Borman film, and I'm trying to figure out which character would have ended up in the red diaper.
What did John? Oh, he did Zardos?
Yeah.
Well, he also did Excalibur, but yeah, that was the joke, Zardos.
Yeah.
All right, so one other thing. You mentioned that it was almost a John Boorman film. It was also almost a Mike Nichols film. And Mike Nichols left just to develop All the Pretty Horses, which eventually he left. And who directed All the Pretty Horses? Do either of you know?
I'm gonna guess Sam Raimi.
John
Nope.
Boorman.
It was Billy Bob Thornton.
Oh,
Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. I've actually never watched that, and I really liked the book.
Well, I've not seen it or read the book, but I know that it was a massive failure and it was subjected to Harvey Scissorfingers. And Billy Bob Thornton was never happy with it.
are you
There's
sure?
a much-
Are you
there's
sure
a
that
much
name isn't
longer-
Harvey Sticky Fingers?
Well, there's a lot of different
Harvey
types of
Pudgy
fingers now
Dickles?
that we know. But yes, apparently there's a longer work print cut that is much better that will probably never see the light of day.
Dang.
Yeah.
I think I remember hearing bad things about that when it came out and never watched it.
It was cut to pieces and cut in a way that made it a totally different movie than what it was supposed to be.
And you can't do that with
Totally.
Cormac McCarthy.
No.
You cannot do that with him.
Also, apparently there was a score by the guy who scored Sling Blade that was just incredible that the studio scrapped. Miramax said nope, and they had somebody else rescore it. It's an abomination.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a
speaking of
total
scores,
abomination.
this score is really good.
It
Danny
is
Elfman.
Danny Elfman. Yeah.
Yeah, that was also a surprise when I saw his name show up. I'm like, I didn't even know. I don't think I ever knew that he did this film. I'm like, this is really good.
Yeah, and it's so unlike a Danny Elfman. Like there is no whimsy to this, really.
It's very reserved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only whimsy to it is the kind of out of tuneness of some of it.
Sure.
Like it's twangy and out of tune at times, and I'm like, okay, that sounds like Danny a little bit. But yeah, it is reserved for him 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he scored a lot for Raimi. Danny Elfman did. Of course,
Interesting.
his Spider-Man scores are probably the most famous ones. But I mean, Danny
yeah, I
Elfman.
mean, they
Danny
showed up
Elfman goes
again.
back as far as Darkman. In fact,
Yeah,
if you
that's
listen,
one. That's a Raimi I think we should all talk about at some
Yes,
Sure.
I would like to talk about that sometime. And that's that Darkman score. If I remember correctly, last time I watched it, it has the early Spider-Man inklings going
A little
on
bit.
there.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, you can look at Darkman and look at all three Spider-Man movies, and it would be fair to say those exist in the same universe.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, I mean, all from the same guy, all with the same kind of value and production quirks.
Well, I dressed as Darkman for Halloween one year, so we definitely
That's
have to talk
awesome.
about that movie.
Hey,
I'm
and
down.
that's some more Francis McDormand and a little bit of Liam Neeson. We haven't talked about Liam Neeson in a long time.
Very true.
That's a definite, like, from kind of my teen years favorite film that I have
Oh.
not seen in many years.
Yeah, and it's got the guy who was on the L.A. Law was the bad guy, and he had the
Dr.
cigar
Giggles?
cutter.
Dr. Giggles? Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
Durant was his name
Durant, yeah.
in the Darkman movies, but he had the cigar cutter and his lighter.
It's Larry Drake.
Yes.
Yep.
Anyway,
interesting.
Ted Raimi's
yeah,
in that too. Yeah, that's good stuff.
so like with this movie, it's like we've mentioned the farmer, and it's like we talked about like what caused the accident that ultimately led to the dog running off to them going out into the woods and finding the airplane. The fox came from this farm that later, when they go to put some of the money back, that farmer is trying to chase down the fox.
Yeah, yeah.
Now the farmer wants to go into the woods, and this is a moment where Jacob just freaks out, and he's like he starts to get angry. It's like, no, you can't go into the woods because Hank is put the money back and he's coming back, and Hank is Jacob is kind of trying to do the right thing here by saying you can't go in there because he's trying to cover. He's not saying that Hank is there. He's just saying you can't go. And he's trying to make it so that Hank can get out or whatever. But when the farmer's like, screw you, buddy, I'm going anyway, Jacob brains him with the tire iron.
Yeah.
and he believes him to be dead, or at least both he and Hank believe him to be dead at first. And Jacob has the thing where it's like, oh, you can do the CPR thing on him to revive him, thinking that that's just works for anything.
Fixes brain injuries too.
Yeah, fixes everything. It's like, oh, my brain's all over the ground. Better do the CPR thing.
Yeah.
But he, so he's like, no, you got to take the car. I'll set this up to look like this was an accident, basically. And then that's when the farmer revives. He's not dead. He just has a major, like a trauma, like major head trauma. And he's like, oh, your brother did this to me. We got to call the police. And that's, so it's like Hank suffocates him and then sets it up to look like an accident, that he ran the snowmobile off the road over a frozen creek, which then would have on the surface caused the brain thing. But let's be honest with you. If anybody has any reason to doubt that the guy would go that far away from the farm on a snowmobile, they're cooked. They're fucking cooked. I mean, because somebody would look into it and say, well, why? It's like they would start. I mean,
they might not know it was them, though.
Francis
a good
come
pathologist would, or autopsy forensic autoptists, or I don't know what the hell.
A coroner.
Yeah, sure, a coroner. Any good coroner would be able to tell which wounds happen pre and post mortem. Yeah.
Right. And so again, Frances McDormand would come into town like 9.5 years pregnant and say, oh, this doesn't look right. And then she'd go home to her husband. They'd do the crossword puzzle while watching the Tonight Show, and everything would be happy. And we would have a 10-minute movie.
Yep. They would adopt the
kid.
The baby, yeah.
They adopt Sarah and the baby.
Yeah. Well, Sarah's probably going too. She's an accessory.
Oh, fair.
Yeah. Not to use another one of those big words for you, but
Are you insinuating?
I think you meant accomplice.
Accomplice, yeah.
So anyway, so that is. This is really where everything starts to just slip and slide right down into the trenches of like hell for everybody.
Well, once you've killed someone, you can't go back.
Right. Yeah.
Like there is no going back. And that was the moment. Like if it was Hank there, you can still say we found all this money at the plane.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And nobody's going to be mad at you for taking it, probably.
And your sympathy
as long as you
really
give it back,
is
nobody's going to be mad about it.
Your sympathy is only really with Jacob here from here on out.
True.
But he's hard to like.
Sure.
Yeah.
He's so flighty. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
because part of you,
as
an audience maker, like part of you wants them to get away with it, right? It's like, what do they got to do to get away?
Of course,
because it's like the Hitchcockian conceit where you're trying to figure out how you would get away with it, right?
Well, yeah, I mean,
and then you're angry at the players that when they make decisions that you wouldn't make, and then you're just like, well, they deserve to get caught. Right?
Well, your natural inclination is to always, if you become infested with characters, you want them. Your natural inclination is for them to come out unscathed, right?
Sure. Yeah. Your antagonist doesn't have to be a morally sound person. Yeah.
But it is interesting because Sam Raimi introduces where the money actually came from.
Yes.
And that's when the audience, as an audience member, you have to make a choice. Who do I ride with here?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do I still want them to get away with it, even though this money clearly belonged to someone who had an abducted child?
Yeah.
Like,
and this is when you see Sarah's full turn, too.
Yes.
Because, and she's right.
She looks
in some ways.
right past the abduction part. She's like, look, this is who nobody knows what happened to, this.
Right.
No, she thinks it's good that it's an abduction.
Right.
Because there's no bad guys coming. It's not like drug money or whatever.
Right. Because if it's drug money, they will not stop. It's like cocaine bear shit, They're coming to get their money.
But that bear will get that. That Ray Liotta.
Bear be damned. They're coming for it.
Yeah.
Ray Liotta is going to have a problem with that cocaine bear, though.
Yeah.
Although, honestly, I wish that fight had lasted a little longer between the two of them, because I have a feeling both of them could go toe to toe for a while, just railing on cocaine.
Oh my god, I know. It'd be like the guy. There was this news clip just recently of this guy who gets tased in San Diego and just keeps coming.
Yep.
Just doesn't go down.
Both sides in that fight between the Cocaine Bear and Ray Liotta are just going to keep going.
This is like the second time in a few months where you guys have railed on Ray Liotta.
Oh,
Look at those eyes, man.
well, I was gonna say he didn't just have a problem with the Cocaine Bear in that movie.
Yep. He's dead, right? We should respect him.
He's dead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's
Respect for the dead. Don't talk ill of the dead.
Well, I mean, as far as we know, he might still be in that coffin. Like, Karen, get me out of here, because the cocaine's just keeping going.
Ever since I was a child, I wanted to do cocaine. Oops, sorry.
Ever since I was a child, I wanted to do cocaine.
Oh my God. Okay. So now we got a dead guy. Now the news report though comes across fairly good news for everybody. It's like, oh, it's an accident. The new year started sad for a family.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a bummer. But no more heat on us, or so we think. But now Lou has run up Lou is also doesn't have a Job.
No, he doesn't.
He does not have a Job, and he is. And so, like, what's he do? He starts gambling. Oh, I mean, I'm assuming he always is a gambler. I mean, there's a lot of places to gamble in Minnesota.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so like he starts to gamble with stuff he doesn't have, because he thinks it's only a matter of time. I'm going to have my 1.5 million, or, or whatever, almost 1.5 million. And so he starts, he goes to Hank and it's like, I want the money. I want my share. And Hank's like, it's a day's drive from here. It's like, we can't go now. And, and he's like kind of lying to him, but he goes and he's like, he has a heart. It's like he goes to his little lockbox and he comes back with a little bit of money.
Like $50 or something.
$40.
It's like $40 is all you got.
That's a pretty good scene, because you get a sense there that while Lou, yes, isn't as emotionally capable of like handling having this type of money, he's really kind of an intellectual equal to Hank in
a lot of ways. Yeah.
Because the I'm going to use it again. The tete-a-tete between the two of them is pretty evenly matched. And eventually what wins out is Hank telling Lou, is like, well, you're involved in this too. You might know what you know about the murder.
Lou drops that
Yeah.
Jacob said that they killed
Right.
the farmer. Yeah.
It's like, well, you may know what you know, but it doesn't matter. We're all going down. If one of us goes down, we're all going down. And that's when he's like, well, I need it. I got people coming after me. I got gambling debts. Yeah. But he's kind of resigned at that point. Like, Hank kind of holds all the cards at that moment. Yeah.
And it's shortly after this that Sarah gives birth
To a plan.
Not yet. Because they have to. This is when she convinces Hank that he's got to get Lou on tape that Lou's the one who killed the farmer.
But she does give birth before they actually do that.
Because she says that in the hospital. She's like, I want you to go and buy a tape recorder.
Oh, you're right.
Because I was thinking, probably what
right.
Hank was thinking. It's like, well, what's that going to do for the kid? Don't we want
That's
a
right.
video
No,
camera?
you're totally right.
Yeah.
You're totally right. Because that's right. Because I think he comes in the house right after Lou leaves, and she's like at the top of the stairs.
She's
and
at
her
the top
water
of the
broke.
stairs.
Yeah.
She's like, Hank, and like her water broke. Yeah.
Yeah. You're right.
But this is like, this is so sad again for Jacob, because he's so sweet. He brings his old bear.
Oh,
Yeah.
and she, you could tell she is not into that.
Oh, she patronizes it.
She's
too.
like, oh, it's used.
Right. And she even wipes her hands
Uh-huh.
off after she hands it over to, and it's like, God, come on. You know?
But don't touch my tail, you're making me dirty.
You're making me dirty. But even Hank is like, he's mean to his brother here. Instead of being, they're not even happy they had a kid almost in this scene. It's like they can't
they're
not
just
think
going,
about the other thing.
yeah, and also at that time, it's like it's almost all formality, like literally, because they're signing papers about making sure that you have everything you need when you leave, and introducing the concept of them signing forms into this almost becoming a formality because all they're thinking about is to the future of the money.
Jacob's the only one that cares.
He's the only, and he is so excited.
Yep.
He even walks into the wrong room, but he's like real happy
That's
about
hilarious.
Like, oh my God, that's great.
I'm looking for Sarah Mitchell.
But oh my God, Billy Bob Thornton,
He's so
actor.
good at this.
I mean,
So
just
good at this.
have you ever seen him in something where he hasn't been really good?
It's true. I mean, he's good in everything. He's even good in like that boring Pushing 10 movie.
Well, I was thinking of
The
like,
traffic controller movie. He's good in that.
Yeah.
well, I mean, he's good in Friday Night Lights.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
He's great as Bad Santa.
She's
You know.
great as a barber.
Yeah,
Lord
As a
Barber.
he was so good he wasn't even there.
Nope, he wasn't there.
Well, this movie wasn't that far removed from Sling Blade,
Yeah,
and
you almost get him typecast as a dullard.
you do almost, but he does so much with this role
Yeah,
that it's undeniable at this point that he's not a one-trick pony.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
I think that this role, like you said, he almost gets typecast as a dullard, but his breakthrough moments, like those lucid moments that Jason talks about, make them so much better.
Yeah.
Because of where they're coming from and how he plays it off. Because he's still, when he's breaking through, he doesn't always seem convinced. And you could see it in the way he's saying it until towards the end. Then he is like finally convinced of something.
The way he looks at Hank in some scenes, right? Just like that side eye look. Like there's just so much going on in this performance that it does make his character complicated, but also complex, but also complicated because you don't really know what ground you're standing on with him. You know,
Right.
because you never really can peg him as far as his intelligence or his learning disability or his mental acuity, right? It's all over the place. But it's also, a very human performance.
It is. And like, he's not book smart, right? Like,
Right.
And he doesn't have the best of the common sense, but he understands being a human.
Right.
And what
Yeah.
that means.
Right.
well, yeah, because he has.
He's wired all the right wires are there where the emotional responses are supposed to be.
And probably a lot of that being human was that maybe this goes back to what you said, that maybe Hank failed in the big city and had to kind of come with his tail between his legs back to the small town where he grew up after college and all of that. Whereas Jacob has remained there. He has some emotional tie to everyone else around them in this town.
Yes, and he also bought into the family dream that his father failed.
Yep. Yep.
Which
'Cause
failed him. It failed him.
Yeah, because what's the one thing he wants more than even the money?
To get the farm back
He
and
wants
do
the
what
farm.
his dad wanted to do.
And the thing is, it's like, he sits there and he's like, and he has to deal with Hank's like, you don't know how to do this or that and it's like, yeah, but you don't either. And it's like, maybe he can figure this out. Maybe this is something he is wired to be able to do. I mean,
Right.
Hank doesn't even give him the chance, really.
No, he's immediately
patronizing him.
short. Yeah.
Which is this whole thing, like Sarah hatching the idea to go get Lou's confession of killing the farmer leads to the scene at the house where, again, she's like, you invited him for dinner? Or why is he here? Like, reinforcing that thing that we were talking about earlier. She doesn't want him around.
She doesn't want him around. She has no care for him.
But it leads to like another amazing scene in this movie where Jacob has to explain two things to Hank. I think they're both in the scene that he never understood. His father failed because he sent him to college.
Right? Yep. Didn't you ever wonder where the money went? Yeah, that's the easiest fucking thing. It's like that also says that Hank wasn't such a smart guy that he got his own path. He didn't get a free ride to college.
No.
He had to be paid through college, which means that maybe he isn't as smart as he thinks he is.
His dad, his mom, and Jacob all sacrificed for Hank.
Yep.
And you ended up at a fucking feed store.
Yep.
And your dad killed himself because of it. Like, it's really, really sad.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really sad.
And I don't even think that really Hank fully understands what Jacob is saying.
At the end, I think when that scene ends, the way that it's centered on his face is like an inkling of him starting to get it.
Like it's starting to turn the right gear. Like he's trying to turn it. Yeah.
But I still think the preamble to this movie says he hasn't learned anything. But go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say that it's like because he sits there and he keeps saying, it's like, oh, you're kidding. You're kidding. And it's like, and like everything next that Jacob says is more and more obvious that's what happened. And it's like, and then, but at the end, he doesn't, none of that. I mean, like he thinks about it at the moment, but it never means anything to him.
It doesn't impact anything he does the rest of the movie. No, for sure. For sure.
No, my take is he still blocks it. He's not ready to face the truth of that.
I can see that too. Yeah. I mean, but both of their looks, like Bill Paxton is so Bill Paxton-y in this movie.
Yes.
But
it's like at any point I'm expecting him to yell that it's game over.
It's kind of weird how like similar his character is to his character in Big Love, the TV show where he was the Mormon polygamist. Like the way he approaches situations is sort of aw shucks, a demeanor. It's
like all you got to do is flash a nice smile and be appropriately respectful to people, and you'll skate on by. That's kind of his attitude here, right?
That's, I think, kind of why I think Frailty is so interesting, because that movie has problems. It's not as good as I recall it being. I still like it quite a bit, actually, but Bill Paxton pushes himself beyond what he's not Bill Paxton in that movie, and normally he is Bill Paxton. But
he's either Bill Paxton's got two like roles. The everyman kind of role, even if he's doing things that everymen aren't doing, right? It's very American Bill. Yeah. And then you've got his comedy roles where he's over the top. It's usually in a James Cameron movie.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of wild.
He lets the frat boy out.
Yeah.
Well, wait, no, you're
right. Frailty is kind of in the middle there. Yeah.
He is not over the top though, because isn't he the guy who's talking to Old Rose in Titanic?
True. He's
just the documentarian in that.
Yeah, he's basically the stand-in for James Cameron in that.
He's there because it's a James Cameron movie and he's contractually obligated.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, you think about it in Aliens or True Lies. Oh my God,
True
Lies.
Even in even in his single scene in Terminator.
It's
bonkers.
Bonkers.
He was just in life. He was always in James Cameron's suitcase. And he just unpacked him.
He just unpacks them and throws them out there. And he just
this movie needs right now.
You gotta hang him. You gotta hang him out for a couple hours so he fully unfurls. he was packed in, and now he's never mind.
Of course, Weird Science. That's also like a wild zany Paxton role. Yeah.
Chet.
Near Dark. That's another one. Yeah, it's Chet.
Yeah, he's Chet.
Near Dark.
Oh, he's so good Near Dark, though.
So good. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So now we're at the big scene. And this is a long scene. Like I said, this is a long scene, but it all starts with, and this is one thing I thought about. One thing that kind of gets the brothers cleared in the big thing that happens is that half the fucking town sees Lou become belligerent towards a guy over bumping into him.
Right, and he's apparently done it to his wife too in public. But yeah,
Exactly. But the thing is he is publicly belligerent at the bar to the point where
Yep.
they have to take him home. And so now they're going to get back home, and now they're going to do the thing. They're going to do the thing where it's going to basically set Lou up as if he's going to say how he killed Farmer Tom or whatever his name was. And they will capture it on the recorder, and and this will get the two brothers off the hook. Although Sarah cares more about Hank being off the hook.
right.
And this is where they're all just kind of sitting around talking. They're all kind of like, and like Lou says something about like how Hank always kind of basically, in so many words, you think your shit doesn't stink. And
Right.
you just think you're better than everybody. So again, Hank is just kind of like, what are you talking about? It's like, dude, we see it, and we haven't known you but for like an hour.
Right.
But like, he gets up to go to talk to his wife because she's mad that she's being kept awake because she's the only one that has a job in that house, or at
Right.
least between her and Luke. And so he's like, okay, well, and so Hank tells Jacob, it's like, all right, dude, now's the time. And Jacob is a little miffed by this because it kind of goes back to when he went to the hospital. There was all this talking about taking sides and all of this. And Jacob doesn't understand how you could not just be on both of their sides. Right. And everybody protect each other. And this is when he starts to say, it's like, Hank's a dick, basically. It's like, can you believe this? And so, but that stumbles into Lou wanting to make fun of Hank, saying how he expects Hank to walk into the sheriff's office. And
Well, Jacob poses that, but yeah.
Well, he poses it, but like but Lou perfectly plays along.
Jacob is brilliant in this scene, which brings into question, like, how dumb is this guy really?
Yeah, exactly. But Lou stumbles in to the whole plan, and he's like, this is how Hank is going to go talk to Carl about the murder. And he gets it recorded, which then when it's revealed, they should, God damn it.
Why do they tell him they have the
Why
fucking
do they fucking tell him that? Exactly. Hank, you dumb fuck. And it's like, because all that did was make him go get a fucking shotgun to go blow away both of them. Really? I mean, like, you just put your life in danger there.
I mean, I don't think he was going to kill Jacob. He was disappointed that
He was disappointed in Jacob.
that he
I
knew
guess,
the
but-
plan. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, so he's going to shoot Hank with the shotgun, which then leads to Jacob defending Hank and killing Lou. And when Lou's wife sees Lou on the floor, she wants to get the ambulance there, but Hank's like, well, we can't until we decide that what we're going to tell them.
And then he picks up the gun and she freaks out and
she
runs.
freaks out, and she runs into a kitchen where there's a gun hiding in one of the drawers, because that's where you put your guns, in the kitchen drawers.
At Lou's house, you do.
I have 4 of them in my drawers. So
Yeah.
you come here, you come into the OK Corral. God damn it. But anyway, but Hank now with Lou's gun. This is a very Sam Raimi scene where he shoots his wife and she goes flying against the wall.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet and funny looking.
yeah.
It is kind of funny. But now he has to figure out, it's like, okay, they were.
She was a deadite.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, she's going to swallow their souls.
Hank works out the positioning of everyone and then
Starts
the
shooting the
story
place
together.
up too.
Yeah.
And all that Jacob can do is just sit on the stairs of the basement Like he is, like it's
He's
all
distraught.
catching up. It's
He's
all catching
distraught.
up to him now. And
I almost started singing Celine Dion there, but it's all catching up to him now. I don't know why. Maybe because you guys
maybe
were
the
talking
Titanic
about
talk. Yeah,
James Cameron had Celine Dion in my head.
yeah.
Jesus.
fair enough. Yeah, so it's like basically
You love me like this. Sorry, go ahead. I don't even know if those are the words.
I don't know. I don't know any lyrics to
going
any Celine Dion song except for the one that is originally Patti LaBelle at the end of License to Kill.
True.
But anyway, so they it's like he's like, I need you to tell me back what I just told you the story is, and he starts repeating it, and and so basically everybody buys it.
Yeah.
Everybody fucking buys it. And it's like, okay, well, I guess that's good.
Fargo with the dumb cop, baby.
Pretty much. Yeah. But then now I will say that they are a little bit helped again because publicly Lou
public
is
perception.
yeah, he is Lou is a,
And nobody
is a wild
cares.
card.
Nobody cares
likes
about
him. Yeah. He's
Yeah.
well, without a job, he's kind of pointless in this whole town. Everybody has a role to play.
And there isn't really a motive for why they would do this. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, everybody knows everybody knows them, so
Right.
it's like Lou has always been a wild card.
Yeah.
So he says, so it's like, okay, so everything kind of works out. Well, later, they're, Sarah and Hank are kind of, just kind of talking things through. And this is, Carl ends up showing up at the door, and he's like, hey, it's like, and it almost seems like, they're going to get arrested.
Right. It's another one of those,
Bait and switch,
Yeah.
because it's like, well, I really hate to do this. And then he steps to the side and he's like, I found your brother passed out like inside the farmhouse of Lou's. Can he stay here and sleep it off, or whatever? And it's like, God damn. It's like seriously, Bill Paxton's got like 40 bricks of shit in his hand.
and that's when we get the story about the fact that Hank thought Jacob had a girlfriend for a month, but
that's when
really.
he takes him back in the next morning. He takes him back to, he's like, we got to go get your truck, which is at Lou's. Yeah.
And we kind of understand at this point that, he's Jacob is he's kind of resigned to this new fate, and he's like, you know what, I don't care anymore. If the money will make me happy, then and it will allow me to have a normal life, even if it's a life bought by money, then so be it. Because I want to know how normal people live.
Yeah, and the whole time Hank is
heartbreaking because it's kind of that moment for Jacob where he has crossed his own personal threshold.
Yeah.
Of what he knows is good and bad, right?
It's also like it feels like the first moment where that this is too much for him.
Yeah.
Like he's imagining what his dream is, but he knows he'll never have it.
Well, yeah, because he has to ask Hank, am I going to be able to do that?
Am I going to be happy? I'm going to be happy now, right? He asks Hank,
But Hank
Hank, the look on Hank's face tells it all, right?
Well, because
Hank realizes that maybe they're never going to be happy again.
I think he realizes that, and I think he also has some inkling how fucking difficult Jacob's life has been.
Yep.
And how his hasn't been.
Nope.
Really. Yeah,
I think he's starting to get a little bit of that perspective, right? Yeah. And I think this does lend to what he says in the preamble about, looking back on what he had, not really. He really appreciates what he had then more now. Right? Maybe he didn't have a full understanding of the nuances of his family dynamic and the way that Jacob. But I think Jacob has kind of made him, even more so than what he's lost, I think Jacob has made him realize what he had.
That's interesting because I still think he hasn't learned anything. I think he is living with grief, obviously. But that guilt and grief, yeah. What he says in the beginning feels more to me like he's saying ignorance is bliss. Like if I didn't know, it doesn't matter. Like what I know now is what pains me. What I understand now is what pains me.
I
not
think
necessarily
the 5 murders is what pains him.
and then he hasn't really learned anything.
Well, I think he's living with the weight of that, and
Yeah,
he
sure.
has learned that he shouldn't have followed the path to a better life because
But
the
the more-
decisions he made put himself, his family, and others in peril.
Sure.
I don't know. I don't feel like it's ignorance is bliss. I don't. I feel like it's regret.
Well, I think the one thing
Definitely
that could
some of
be
that there.
ignorance is bliss is if without the money ever being introduced, I don't know if either Hank or Sarah would have known how unhappy they could have been
Yeah.
with their present situation. So
The only reason I say that
they would have worked through it, but they wouldn't have. It
I
wouldn't
do
be
understand
there
what
on
you're
the
saying,
surface
though,
now.
Chuck. Is because I do understand what you're saying. Is because the hard truths about his life that he had not confronted, that he ended up confronting through these violent events.
right.
Yeah. Is he lumping it all into one snowball and making an insinuating throw? Right.
Yeah,
Right.
probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, it's just the two of them, and they think for the most part now it might be starting to look better. But in comes the FBI.
Gary
Finger
Cole.
quotes. Oh my God, Gary Cole.
What's happening?
Yeah, I'm gonna need you to go ahead and take me to the site.
I'm gonna need you to fill out these TPS reports. Take me to the site.
So he shows up to say basically, it's like, well, we're looking for a plane. And again, goes all the way back to the very start of finding the money.
Yeah.
Well, maybe the Carl isn't as dumb of a cop as we thought, because he does remember. Oh,
He
yeah,
does.
Jacob said he thought he heard, and what
Every
he
bad
doesn't
decision
remember-
comes back to bite them in some way.
But,
Yes.
but the thing is that he doesn't remember, and it never gets brought up again, is Hank saying, yeah, who knows what he ever says? Ignore him,
Yeah.
Instead, now they're both sitting in the police station, and Hank is telling the entire story and not Jacob, which is good
course.
for Hank, I guess. But like, Carl doesn't remember that Jacob was, or that Hank was like, never mind him, or whatever. It's like,
Yeah.
that's where Carl gets stupid again. He remembers one thing, but he doesn't remember the other.
Yeah, but they didn't crash the plane though. Like, so I don't think that he should have any kind of doubt in what they're saying. I get what you're saying.
I don't either. I think it's more Carl and Hank were probably on the same wavelength with this is just crap that
Jacob does.
that Jacob does and says and stuff like that. Like, nobody takes him seriously, right?
But now there
the
is
way
somebody who
he
is-
tells the story is like, I still don't really. Hank kind of plays it off,
That is
You know?
true, because Jacob does say it could have been a snowmobile.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
An engine of some kind.
Right. They both play it off.
That's fair. That's
But the fact that there's a FBI agent in air
air
quotes,
quotes.
Carl is like,
That's the only reason why Carl has brought them back in. Otherwise, if somebody hadn't come saying we're looking for a plane, which
Yeah.
makes me wonder how many other little towns in the last couple of weeks has Gary Cole gone to?
oh yeah,
It's
Yeah.
like he has probably been doggedly
probably.
tracking down these itty bitty little Minnesota towns.
And that's why if the police had found the money, found the plane with some money in it, right, it would have,
Stop the story, kind of.
it would have stopped the other kidnapper. Oh, spoiler alert! in his tracks, right? Because you were like, well, crap, that's it. That's the
But he's got to
authorities
go
have
look.
the money.
He's going to go look until that happens. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So that was a smart move by Sarah, like super smart. But
Yeah,
but
because
they,
she's
but
like,
they haven't found the plane yet. So
yeah. So she's like, well, I'm going to call the FBI office and ask for the specific guy,
yeah.
and then stall them at the police station, and don't leave the police station. And then we'll make sure Jacob doesn't show up for a little while, and we'll just say, he tied one on last night, and everybody's going to believe that because he ties one on every night.
He came looking like he tied one on.
Yeah. But then he's like, okay, well, basically she calls and it's like, there is no FBI agent with that name. It is the other guy, which is so funny because she's like, here's the picture of the guy. It's the other guy, very obviously. It's like, I don't think that's even Gary Cole. It's
not very obvious to me.
It's not obvious to me.
But her instincts are good. Yeah.
Yeah. Instincts are spot on. Your eyeballs, not so much. But no, she's like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and, it's like she goes ahead and calls and it's like, it's not him. You need to come home. Don't go out there. He's going to shoot all of you. But yet Hank, for some reason, decides he has to go because
it's not for some reason. It's because he wants to save the cop.
That is true. That is true. Because the cop would go anyway in the moment they find the plane.
Well, it's also, didn't Jacob say he would meet him there?
No.
Later?
No. He shows up anyway.
He shows up because Sarah called him and told him, your brother's in trouble.
But Hank does say on the phone to Sarah, but what about Jacob? So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember that, so I can't comment.
No, he says, what do I do about Carl?
He says the cop. The cop.
Yeah, it's like, he does say, what do I do about Carl?
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't know. Tell him anything. Tell him that,
So he makes a heroic choice.
Yes.
He does. Yeah, because I guess
it's not a fully redeeming choice, but it's
to be honest with you, you're probably right in the sense that he has to go now because this guy ain't going to leave town now. Even if he finds the plane, he's going to find no money, or he's not going to find enough money.
He's going to find $500,000. Yeah,
50,000.
I don't even think Hank.
It was. I thought it was left $500,000.
500.
I thought it was just 50.
Was it just 50?
No, it was 500,000. It was a large chunk. She said.
Yeah, I think she said 500,000.
She's like, it has to be a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, I don't even think, honestly, and we don't really need to deliberate this, that his motivation is to help Carl and not let Carl die. I don't even think he's smart enough to think like this guy won't give up if I don't go out there.
He's not thinking 3 or 4 steps ahead at this point. No way. Now his wife is maybe, but she's not even. She's like more looking out for his immediate.
Yeah, it's like right now
safety.
You're going to die. You need to come back here and we need to leave. Basically, I think is what her ideas are probably.
Yeah.
Right.
So he while they go outside, he grabs a revolver and some bullets, steals it from Carl's office, and so he's got a gun, unbeknownst to
everybody.
Our
but
FBI
he also
agent,
has a bunch of random bullets that don't fit.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's intense.
Yeah, he just had to it is really intense. It's a tense scene.
Yeah.
He doesn't know which ones fit. Yeah.
Yeah. So so they get out there, they split up, they go in 4 different, they basically go in a straight line, but in 4 directions, which is wild because a good cop and people who are really kind of with it that are tagging along, in this case, Hank, there is no reason why the Mitchells have to help them search for a plane.
No.
There's no legal reason why the FBI would say you have to take us to the plane. Maybe take you to the reserve where you heard something, but that's the end of it.
Well, yeah, but that's also suspicious as all fuck. Yeah.
But Carl should be like, wait, why do we need them?
Sure. Potentially.
And by the way, can you show me your fucking? Man. I know. I mean, again, Francis McDormand would not be fucking with this.
It's the kind. It's the kind of town, kind of police, and where Sheriff Carl tells Jacob, don't forget to bring your rifle along.
Right.
Which I guess is good.
Because we're gonna shoot our guns off into the air if we see something.
Yeah. But I mean, it's again one of those situations where this is a town full of dummies.
A little bit.
You know, because it's like,
oh, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, because, FBI agent Neil Baxter is fine with saying, okay, hey, Sheriff, can you help with this? Or tell us where we need to be, take us up to the ridge of the tree line, and I'll call the rest of the FBI in for a search, or whatever. But yeah, the town is full of dummies, so nobody stops to say none of these guys should be there except for the cop and the FBI agent. Nobody else is there.
Except for Hank does try to tell Carl, like, hey, you should check his thing, and he makes fun of him. He's like, oh yeah, you like treats him like he's a little boy. Ask him to see your badge.
You hold his gun.
Yeah, but again, that's just the
I could turn the lights on for you.
He treats him like a little boy. Like, this is dumb. Yeah. We're all in the...
Well, probably because Carl has known him since he was a little boy.
Yeah. No, he's fucking dogging his ass because.
Well, no, but I mean,
this is not how procedure works.
Well,
Hank.
Yeah, to a degree, again, Sheriff Carl thinks that his instincts and his abilities are greater than they are.
Right.
He's again handicapped by his own opinion of his worth.
Like most people in this movie.
Because it would be procedure if an FBI agent showed up to look at their identification. That is just a standard thing you do. You don't take people for their word on that shit like that, right?
Especially not in law enforcement.
No.
But Sheriff Carl Jenkins does.
Yeah. That just doesn't happen. Which makes you wonder, like, has he gone to a lot of small towns? And why hasn't anyone called him on that bullshit? He probably has some kind of fake that looks pretty good, but we don't know.
Well, I don't know, because the first thing he does is like, oh yeah, sure, gun, bam. So basically that's where we're headed.
Gun bam.
Gun bam. Carl starts shooting his gun up because he's found the plane. And like now Hank is like, oh shit, I got to start figuring out which is the right fucking bullet for this gun. And he also needs to get to the plane so that he can protect Carl, or at least try to say, hey, Carl, he's got a gun, which
he's not FBI. Turn around, blah, blah.
It is funny that he's like, he's got a gun. Of course he would. He's an FBI agent. But anyway, but
Carl doesn't even hear him anyway.
No, well, Carl's like, yeah, well,
everybody come down here and find the plane. I'm Carl.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So
like, I'm Carl, everybody right here, shoot me.
And he's like, it's like, oh, fine, show him the badge. He's like, yeah, I can do that. Here's TPS report. Bam. Bam. And so, yeah, it shoots Carl fucking dead on the spot, like with a gigantic fucking handgun. Like, that's a big handgun that he has.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was like, wow, that's a big gun. That's like fucking bigger than what James Bond would carry.
I was going to say, you're used to watching James Bond carry a woman's gun.
Yeah, a much sleeker gun. Anyway.
I'm making a joke when I say woman's gun. You'd have to listen to our episodes from before where we discussed this. Sorry.
Yeah, a Beretta. Yeah, in the books, he carried a Beretta, which was a woman's, is considered a woman's gun. Anyway. So Gary Cole's like, you got to go into that plane and get, it's like, where's my fucking money? Get my fucking money. Where's the rest of my fucking money? Now, meanwhile, inside the plane, Hank has figured out what the bullet is. And he lines up the chamber. He's got one bullet. And he lines up the chamber. And so when he comes out and like, all of a sudden, like, Gary Cole's like, where's the rest of my fucking money? Man, and
this will not stand, man.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but Bill Paxton is like, well, I got the rest of your fucking money right here, bitch. And he pulls the gun. That's exactly the line. Don't deny it. Okay, yeah, it is. And he holds the gun up, and Gary Cole realized, like, well, maybe I can talk to him where I can, pull my gun up in time. But he's like, you're not going to do that. You're not the cold-blooded type. It's like, this guy has no idea what fucking Hank has done lately.
Nope.
Because this is the one time he does think this shit through and guns him down.
It's like, well, looks like we both have some explaining to do.
Blammo.
Nope.
And he's
just
like, only
of us.
one of us. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's
It is
so good.
It is
Yeah.
good.
And so Jacob shows up.
It's like a Wyatt Earp line.
Yeah, a little bit.
No shit. But Jacob shows up, and Jacob's had it, man. It's like, there's been too much blood. There's too much stuff going on. He picks up Gary Cole's gun, and it's like, what are you doing, man? You got to put that back. And it's like, just make it look like the bad guy did it. And it's like, he's just begging to be released from this, and to ultimately, he just can't handle everything that's gone on anymore.
And he also knows, I think, there's the absolution of Hank, right? And the tying up of the loose thread that will get Hank caught if he stays alive. He would talk.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like, this is closing everything up. It's tying it in a neat bow for his brother.
Yep.
Yeah.
And eventually, because he's like, look, I'll turn around so you don't have to look at me when I do it, or when you do it.
Yeah.
My absolute favorite Billy Bob moment in this movie is when he goes to the ground to check Carl, and Bill Paxton says, "What are you doing? Don't touch him. You'll mess it up." And he looks up at Hank, and he says, with this look on his face and this perfect delivery that's got so much loaded meaning in it, "Mess it up."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like that delivery of that line is just superb acting.
It's all his human understanding. Like, this is already fucking messed up, man.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have to explain it to him. Like, he's simple, right?
Yeah.
And
But it's almost like he's confused by what he even means by that, right?
Yeah.
So that double meaning, it's like, it's wonderful. It's like
it is, because it's a natural line by him, right? Like, mess it up.
Like, what do you mean? What do you mean mess it up? Yeah.
Right.
But I don't think he means that.
Right.
But it comes off like that.
Well, it comes
as
off
he
like
would say
as he
it.
would
Yeah.
all their life before. Yeah. I mean,
Well, no, I don't think it comes off that way. I think it plays both ways. Like, his delivery is in both.
It's ambiguous.
It's
What I'm
ambiguous.
saying is,
But I do agree that he is. I think that truly, like, his underlying meaning in that delivery of that line is that, yeah, it is already messed up, right? What more can I mess up?
right.
And what are you telling me at this point can be messed up? Right.
Right. But he says it in a way that's very Jacob.
Right.
Like,
Right,
you
but
would,
it would be in a way
Yeah.
where even Hank would probably look back and it's like, well, the way you always mess things up. It's like,
Right.
It's playing to Hank differently than what it's playing to us.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's the duality of that.
Yes. I think you're right. Yeah.
Because then he's like, well, don't, like, put back the gun. Don't pick it. We need that to stay there, next to the bad guy, because I shot the bad guy, even though, yes, this is the one time unequivocally, completely and totally, this is self-defense. It's like, this is at the end of a gun, self-defense,
Yeah, we didn't actually do anything wrong here.
Right.
Even though everything
So I
we
need the
did
gun
wrong
to stay
led
over
here.
there. Yeah. The gun's got to be over there. But yeah, so it's, and so he does eventually have to, well, doesn't have to, but he does eventually pull the trigger.
Yeah.
And kills Jacob. And that's terrible.
Yeah.
But this is your Rod Serling moment here, everybody.
Oh yeah.
Because the cops come, everybody believes the exact thing that we saw, which is the only story here, which is, this was not a real FBI agent. He shot, he shot the cop to protect himself. Hank shot the bad guy. The only thing that's added is that the bad guy also killed Jacob. That's the only thing that is not as we exactly saw it. But and this is where you get the FBI. It's like, well, it's like in all my years of listening to people talk, and this is how you detect liars. And it's like, oh God, they've got him. They got Hank finally.
Yep.
And then it's like, but you didn't pick up anything from this Neil Baxter character. And it's like, oh my God, he's floated by again. But then they were like, basically he's off the hook for everything. The only problem is there's still a matter of $4.4 million missing.
3.9 at this point.
Well, 3.9, but it's like the only thing missing for the FBI now is the money, the real FBI. And it's like, they're all large bills, and it's like normally we would have every single number, but there's so many of them, and the deal had to happen so fast, we could only mark one of the $100 bills in each packet. Which those packets are, 50,000, I think, each? Something like that? 10,000 each. So there's a lot of fucking packets. That means there's a lot of marked bills.
It's 100 times 100 is 10,000. Yeah, so it's 100 hundreds in each packet. And there would be 10 times, there'd be 100, there'd be 440 packets.
Which means there's 440 marked $100 bills. And they're not all on the ones on the top.
No.
They're going to be mixed in. So it's like...
Several packets could be totally clean. Yeah.
But you don't know. You don't know. Well, they do say that it's about one in every packet.
Yeah.
So they probably just took one and just opened it up and wrote down the number and then threw it in the bag.
Well, I think they said that. I think they said they actually recorded up to 5,000 bills.
It was like 1 in 10 bills is what they said.
Yeah, whatever.
Something like
Doesn't
that.
matter. They recorded enough to make it pretty risky.
It was untenable to keep the money.
Yeah. That's the whole point.
Yeah. So
what do they do? What does Hank do?
He goes home and he burns it, with Sarah fighting with him the whole way, and to the point where he pushes her all the way back and onto the floor as he dumps it into the fire. And I mean, talk about this is like some fucking Twilight Zone shit, man. Because it's like all the stuff that he had to go through, he gets nothing but the guilt and the regret.
Like
everything.
I said earlier, the less fortunate can't have anything.
Yep.
So it's not going to happen. You can't steal like the rich do, like the dudes in the Big Chill do, by giving each other information about a sale of a company and blah, 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 blah.
Right.
It is kind of interesting how diametric, is that the right word? Like these movies are opposed.
Yeah, diametrically opposed. It's, and you see them going back to their life before, scot-free, seemingly, but living with everything they had to do to get there, to be back right where they started from with completely and totally different thoughts and feelings about everything.
Not back where they started from, really. I mean, Jacob no longer has a brother. Or Hank no longer has a brother.
Well, yeah, but like back to their family unit's life, except for
their squalor.
Their squalor, yeah. It's like, she's back. She's putting books on the shelf. She looks completely and totally checked out of life, and he's just kind of, he no longer has the smile on his face while working at the feed store, and being recognized by everybody.
Well, fuck them. I work hard. I work hard for the American dream, people, and I'm happy with my life.
Well, there you go.
I'm being somewhat sarcastic here.
Well, no, that's fine. I mean, but no, it's a
Jason's checked out. He's like the characters in this movie.
He's gone down a rabbit hole over there.
Yeah, I don't have much else to say other than Jeff even mentioned it in our side chat. It's the Of Mice and Men ending, right?
I was going to say Of Mice and Men earlier. That's interesting.
I mean, obviously
that was a take. That was a take when the movie came out. I remember reading several critics mention it.
Yeah.
And then I always kind of thought of this as sort of an inverse DB Cooper story. The Legend of DB Cooper.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So for our listeners who might not know, DB Cooper famously, this was in the 70s, I think.
72, I think.
Hijacked a plane, told them to fly to Seattle. I think it was Seattle. Said, I want like $5 million, and I'll let everybody on the plane go. And they gave him the money, let everybody go. He told the pilot to take off again, and he jumped out of the plane in a parachute, never to be heard from
seen
again.
And the money was never nothing.
Nothing was recovered ever again. That's the wildest thing. So I was kind of like, I always think of it as like a DB Cooper story. The last thing I have to say about this movie is when I saw this in the movie theater, it was playing at the Greenwood Cinema GC Quad that I worked at when this came out. So I saw it. I didn't see it like in an employee screening. I don't think we had time to screen it in advance. I think, and this would track with what I'm about to tell you, it was pretty hastily put together to make it for its first showing. And I think I saw it on its second or third showing, like the day it came out in the afternoon or something like that. And I was thoroughly confused. And everybody that I saw the movie with, we all walked out of the movie like, what the fuck did we just watch? That made no goddamn sense. It was like the most confusing movie ever. Well, guess what? Two of the reels were in the wrong order. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Totally confused.
Oh my God.
And then I watched it again. And I was like, oh God, yes, this is a much better movie.
Oh my God. That's hilarious.
Isn't that funny?
No, I was wrong. It's 1971. November 24th, 1971 was the day that DB Cooper disappeared without a trace. There is a movie, The Pursuit of DB Cooper, that Roger Spottiswoode did, speaking of a Bond director.
Oh.
Treat Williams and Robert Duvall.
There was a documentary that came out a couple years ago that was pretty good. And they have some degree of certainty that they know who DB Cooper was, but he was still never recovered.
They don't, do they?
Chuck gets a knock at the door, right? How we're recording this.
Come and knock on my door. I'm not DB Cooper.
Hey, speaking of, John Ritter connects to Billy Bob Thornton, connects to Sling Blade.
Yes. 6 degrees of, go.
DB Cooper. Anyway,
Which that would be the most impossible game to ever play.
Yes. Nobody knows who he is. He can't figure this one out.
Oh, that's good.
All right. So I think this is a very good movie. And yes, the first half of the movie is kind of relatively like, you are frustrated by those mistakes that are made. It doesn't mean that it's not a good movie.
No.
Still.
No,
but
it kind of like plays to their characters as you get to know them.
Exactly. And but that end is so perfect that it makes the whole movie so good.
Yeah.
In retrospect and everything that they deal with and of course
it was futile. It was futile from the start.
Yep.
And who knows if everything had gone correctly with them taking the money, there were multiple endings or multiple ways this whole thing was going to fail, right? Like it was always doomed to fail. It just had a choose your own adventure way of getting there.
Yeah, the crows were there. You're not surviving this.
Right.
Yep. All right. So good movie. Good choice. Good pick there, Chuck.
Good
Thanks.
stuff.
So that ends this week's discussion. Next week, on Wednesday, we are going to finish the year out with a little bit more levity, if you will, with 1999's The Iron Giant. I dare say an animated masterpiece.
Yeah, I would agree.
It's pretty damn good.
Yeah, pretty good by a pretty good animation director. So that's a double whammy of good.
Yep.
So that's next Wednesday. That is episode number 294. Ding, we're getting close to 300,
Ding.
guys.
Holy shit.
So that's going to be at filmseizure.com. That will close out our 2023 slate too. So go to filmseizure.com. That's where you can find all the places you can follow us, where you can subscribe to the show to listen to it, all of that good stuff. Also at filmseizure.com, this upcoming Monday is a new episode of Monster Mondays, which happens to be Christmas Day. So what's the best possible Monster Mondays for Christmas Day?
Krampus?
I've already done
Gremlins.
that. No, I haven't done that because we did that. Nightmare Before Christmas.
Well, you're wrong. That's like the third best possible.
Okay, well, yeah.
We already named it two first.
Fair. But yeah, no, that is this Monday, filmseizure.com. So next Wednesday morning, The Iron Giant. This upcoming Monday afternoon, Nightmare Before Christmas. This upcoming Friday at my website, bmovieanima.com, I've got a little bit of a treat for myself. I kind of gave myself a Christmas gift for a review. The Toxic Avenger.
Nice.
So that can be read at Film Seizure or at bmovieanima.com this Friday morning. So want to wish everybody happy holidays, happy Christmas, all of that. I believe Hanukkah's over by now, but I hope that was very
Happy
good
holidays,
for everybody.
everybody.
Happy everything, right?
Yeah. Happy everything.
Happy everything. And we will see you here on the 27th for The Iron Giant. I am Jeff Arbuckle.
I'm not a gun.
That's next week. And I'm Jason Oliver, and you've been listening to Film Seizure.